Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16 here to preview Kentucky's matchup with Ohio University. You can catch that 11:45 Central on the SEC Network. Kentucky is an 18.5-point favorite with an over-under of 41.5. My model has got Kentucky by 20. The Cats have beaten Southern Miss and lost to South Carolina and Georgia. Ohio has lost to Syracuse but beaten South Alabama and Morgan State. Chase Robinson, looking forward to breaking this one down with you. Before we do that, a reminder, our content brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff. Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000 when the game's over. Head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with over one of 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on all the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. Chase, let's talk about Kentucky's defense. I think that's the good news scenario for the Cats is this defense so far has mostly looked like what we thought it would look like. You had the abbreviated shutout against Southern Miss. You had the 30-something points allowed to South Carolina. That was really more an offensive failure than a defensive. And then you had a great rebound against Georgia over the weekend, even if you did lose it.
Yeah, and we've talked about Kentucky's defense. We were impressed with them going into the season, and yes, they didn't. There was some issues against South Carolina, but they corrected those. I feel like they only allowed 13 points to Georgia, which is the fewest they've ever allowed, or they've allowed against Georgia since 1995. And so I feel like, and holding Georgia's offense to 262 yards of total offense. Georgia has not been held to that low since 2019. So Kentucky did well defensively. They held Georgia to 160 yards passing, which is big, I think. And so I like where Kentucky's defense is at right now. I mean, again, you pitch a shutout in the opener to Southern Miss. You allow Georgia to score 12 points. And yes, we can't forget about the South Carolina game. I understand that, where they gave up 31 points there to the Gamecocks. But I think as a whole, this Kentucky defense is right where they want to be. This is their side of the ball. We knew going in. Yeah. They've got a lot of guys back. Like, this was going to be a for-real defense. And, you know, there's going to be games where they don't play that way, and that was South Carolina. But I think overall, this defense, and they showed that it wasn't a fluke that this was a 1-point game with Georgia and Kentucky. No, the Kentucky's defense just played really good. They were able to stop Georgia offensively when they needed to. And so I think credit Kentucky defensively and what they were able to do. I really like Derek Jackson as well. He's a linebacker. And then 2 DBs I really enjoyed watching. I went back and watched some of that Kentucky-Georgia game before we did this video. And Ty Bryant and Zion Childress, they had 6 tackles apiece, as did Derek Jackson. And so and Childress also had a good tackle for loss and a pass breakup. Those DBs were working hard against, again, a really good offense in Georgia. And so I like what I saw from Kentucky's defense. It looked a world of difference than what it did against South Carolina. I feel like that was a game where the offense and defense, neither one were on the same page, and you saw that in the final score. Yeah. But I thought, like you mentioned, they rebound so nicely against Georgia. But I liked the defensive performance from Kentucky Saturday night.
Yeah, by the numbers, here's the matchup, and I'll tell you a few things about Ohio in a minute. Kentucky's defense giving up 14.7 points a game across approximately 2.5 games, which also accounts for the low snap count. 45 snaps on average this defense faces. 2.2% turnover rate. Teams run at 53% of the time against the Cats. 3.2 yards per running play, and 6.5 per passing play, 4.8 yards per play overall. Ohio's offense averages 23.3 points on 65 snaps. It's got a 3.1% turnover rate. Teams run at 56% of the time, or Ohio, runs at 56% of the time, and 6.1 per rushing play and the same per passing play. Ohio, you got a few weapons here. Anthony Tyus III, their leading rusher, 367 yards, 7.5 yards a carry. You got Coleman Owens has lit up the stat sheet so far. The receiver, 21 catches, 282 yards. Would presume Max Hairston would get the assignment on him. No touchdowns, though. And Parker Navarro has had an erratic year. He's their starting quarterback, 547 yards, has thrown for 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, also been sacked 7 times. So I think this is a side of the matchup that would favor Kentucky. Obviously, you want to watch Tyus in the run game and keep an eye on Coleman Owen. All right, on the other side of the matchup, Kentucky averaging 16.3 points on 59 snaps, 2.2% turnover rate. They run it 60% of the time, averaging 5.0 yards per rushing play, 3.4 per passing play. That's awful. And 4 yards per snap overall. Ohio's defense, 21.3 points a game, 66 snaps, a 1.5% turnover rate. They pass it 56% of the time, 4.1 yards per rushing play, 6.1 per passing play, and 5.2 overall. Ohio's had an interesting year. They played South Alabama, which scored 87 points, I think, on somebody. I think that was more indicative of the matchup than it was the strength of South Alabama. But where this connects is Ohio has played those guys. So it's played some offenses that can score points, which is an area in which Kentucky's having trouble, in particular when it comes to throwing the ball.
Yeah, I mean, they scored 31 points in their first game. They haven't scored a touchdown in the last 2 games. They kicked 2 field goals against South Carolina. They kicked 4 field goals against Georgia. And so this is an offense that's gone 2 games without scoring a touchdown. That's got to change. And I think this is a good week to make that happen before you get into a gauntlet of an SEC schedule. But yeah, something has to change and change quickly for the Wildcats. Brock Vandegrift, and they can move the ball some. It's just converting those into points. Brock Vandegrift is 29 of 55, just a 52.7% completion rate. He's thrown 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's gotten sacked 7 times. Dime Sumo. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the running back's name there. He has 227 yards. He leads the team rushing with only 457 yards total of rushing offense this year. Dane Key leads the team in receiving with 119 yards on 8 receptions, which is good. He averages 14.9 points per catch. Barion Brown has scored a couple of touchdowns. He has 62 yards on 7 catches. But this offense, they've got to be able, and maybe it's this week that they're able to start moving the ball and figure something out. It's just to go 2 games without scoring a touchdown is a major concern for me. With Kentucky. They have got to figure it out offensively.
Yeah, let's get on the picks. Tell me who you're picking and why.
I'm going to go Kentucky in this game. I don't think it's going to be just a pushover by Kentucky. I really don't. I mean, it's I think it could be closer than maybe what we think it could be. I do think Kentucky wins, though. I do think they figure things out offensively. They've got the spread at 20. I feel like that's a little high maybe, but I feel like Kentucky does win this game, and they take this game to figure some things out offensively.
Yeah, I kind of see it the way you do. And look out for the MAC, man. Notre Dame found that out with Northern Illinois. Mississippi State got smoked by Toledo last week. And Tim Allen has won 10 games each of his last 2 years at Ohio, which is not an easy place to win. Yeah, I look at the defensive stats for them. Now, I think where I am a little concerned, they've only got 4 sacks. And so I don't know if Ohio can do exactly what gives Kentucky trouble. That's get after the passer. But we'll see. I feel like 20 points is pretty high. And the over-under on this game, what is it, 41.5? The predicted final would be Kentucky 30, Ohio 11, more or less. It feels weird to say a game with an over-under of 41.5 might feel a little high, but I just don't know that I can trust Kentucky to score right now. Now, maybe this is the breakout game. Maybe they got some confidence against Georgia, but I'm with you. I don't think this is a game where they just win it going away. So Thanks for watching our preview of Ohio and Kentucky. We cover SEC sports year-round, football, baseball, basketball all the time. Best way to get that, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and caroline.smith@southeastern14.com. If you are looking to sponsor our show, we reach millions of people a year. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 16, presented by BetOnline.